I have my pumpkins on, but I mean, they had masks. They were owning it.
I was just thinking I should go get mine that I'm about to wear to my kids' school for their party at 12:30.
Yeah.
What are you gonna be, Tanya?
A butterfly.
Nice.
She was a butterfly at work the other day.
Well, I only have one costume, Brandy.
Oh.
That was hard enough. We did at our all staff meeting. We dressed up. It was a lot of people dressed up. It was really fun.
Mr. Cornish is a college student. He has Hopkins on and he has orange. So
I'm gonna go get I'll go get my headband.
Not yet. I'm going back next year.
Excellent. Where are you going?
I haven't decided yet.
What are your options?
Well, Hopkins University, University of Maryland, quite a few options, some local collegiate settings as well. So I have to decide which one is going to best suit my objective.
Absolutely.
So there's several options nonetheless. So.
Good for you. We have to vote for Maryland, though, since, you know. It's where I got my master's, so we have to, and my daughter goes there now, so I have to vote for Maryland.
Okay.
yeah, I have a son there right now. So yes.
There you go. We have 2 votes for Maryland.
I don't know if you have any Hopkins alumni on
Aaron,
the Zoom. They may have an issue with that statement.
Tanya went and got the butterfly.
all right. I love it.
So Suki, I'm not sure. Do we have everyone we need at this point?
We do not have all of our speakers, and I am texting and doing the things I need to get them in. But I think we should go ahead and get started, Aaron.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you want me to say a few things, Aaron? Do you want to jump in?
I can jump in while you handle all the texting and all of that.
Anthony Muhammad said he's in the waiting room, Suki.
Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Aaron Betzinger. I'm a co-chair of this work group along with Dr. Liz Park. And we're really happy to welcome everyone today to have this discussion about credible messengers programs in Maryland. And we're going to start with our opening presenter, Dr. Bunley, who's the director of the Mayor's Office of African American Male Engagement. And then we'll have a panel that follows that, and we'll leave about 5 minutes at the end for some discussion and questions. But I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Bunley.
Good morning. I was just sharing with Anthony. Did you get Anthony Muhammad and Suki?
I'm still trying to get him in. I don't see him in the waiting room. I'm sorry, Dr.
Okay, I'm just going to share with him. I shared that with you. I shared with you.
Okay. And then I'll get with him with the logistics so he can do
Okay.
your
All right.
There we go. I see him now. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I'd just like to thank the conveners for asking me to share a few words of 15 minutes or so about this important work. I happen to deal with credible mentors every day. I have a group of 10 working in this office. I guess I was one after the fact. I had a former life as a principal, assistant principal, and a school teacher. And so after the fact, I've learned that I guess I was credible, but that's not based on what I said. That's based on what those whom I've had the pleasure of interacting with and influencing their lives as it has been told to me by them. And so I guess I was somewhat credible in their lives. So that being said, when we look at credible mentors, I want to talk about just 2 concepts and then go a little more in detail about one of the concepts. There is a need for a work then rest cycle. Work and rest. Because those who do credible mentoring, those individuals are involved in some unforeseens, and those unforeseens in terms of interactive behavior with individuals that they care about helping, those things become exhausting, right? And then exhausting not only because of what they're experiencing, but because real credible mentors don't have all of the answers, but they have to go get answers. And that kind of work is exhausting work, right? Because to be credible, you have to basically have the character piece. And the character is that you have to give your word and keep it. You have to be competent, right? You have to be able to do what you say you can do. And if you look at it in a formulaic kind of way, your character and your competence sits above consistency, right? You have to be consistent. And then on the other side of the formulaic equation equals credibility. So the credibility comes when you exemplify the character. Give your word, keep it, competence. Be able to do what you say over consistency. Those things give you credibility. So, and those things are exhausting. So let me get to the attributes related to work. One of the things that we've learned is that I think I want our work to become the pool of individuals that we help. We want to be able to shrink that pool. And the way I think that we shrink that pool is because we're blessed in this country, particularly, we're blessed to have compulsory education. Compulsory education, and we're blessed to have people to still believe in compulsory education, because most parents do adhere to the idea of putting their children, particularly in public schools, in school. And when we find parents who struggle and are in need of support with their children, they do put their children in school, but the task of educating their children, unfortunately, becomes put to those individuals in the schools to do the dominant work, right? And so the compulsory education piece, what that does is it gets our youngsters into the school. And how this is connected to credible mentors is that when you look at individuals coming into schools, when you're compelled to school, public school, our youngsters have pupil numbers. And that pupil number follows them all the way up through school, right? Until they move off to college. Like some of your children are now in college, as stated on the call. And so when they get to college, they get a college number that identifies them as a student, right? But unfortunately, many of the individuals that we work with, they end up not getting a college number. Unfortunately, they get a incarceration number. And so we find ourselves doing great work as credible mentors. We have individuals who have lived experience. They intervene effectively. But if you talk to many of the individuals who have the zeal and the passion and the compassion to be credible mentors, they will tell you, I wish, as I said, that I know after the fact, many of my students say, Dr. Bunley, you did this, you did that. And they take me back to what I did as I interacted with them in school. And many of the individuals who become some of the most effective, credible mentors, right? And everybody that becomes a credible mentor does not have to have a lived experience of incarceration, but many of those individuals who are passionate about it have been incarcerated. They have lived experience that they bring back, but they will tell you, I wish you would have gotten to me early. Thus, this whole idea of when youngsters have pupil numbers, we need to be able to go upstream and begin to provide those credible mentors as far upstream as possible when they have pupil numbers. That's when we really want to do it. And I liken it to this whole notion of crowdfunding. In crowdfunding, we have a lot of these groups, small groups of individuals raising a whole lot of money. And you hear often about crowdfunding on different projects, right? But I think we have to have crowd supporting. If we have many effective, credible mentors who know how to become what we call narrative truth coaches, they get it done. So this whole idea of being upstream is the work, so that we won't have to see them downstream. We don't want them to have an incarceration number. We don't want them to have a number that is contacted, but we see manifestations. I have a piece of data that I'm looking at right now in the office, and I asked them, the individuals who were involved in, and I looked at homicides. And I asked from homicide, when they give me the number, they don't give me names, they just give me numbers. And so the homicides from zero, they did it from 0 to 80 years old. But I didn't get anything from 0 until I didn't get a number until they youngsters became 13. These are individuals who are committing homicide. So from 0 up to 12, nothing. I didn't get anything. But starting at 13, 2 individuals committed murder. Then as you go down, all the way down to 80 years old. So when you move down toward after 50 and 60, you start to get zeros out in the column. But from 13 down to 38, and it goes all the way down because you have a spot numbers here and there. But you get my point that it jumbles up. It jumbles up in terms of the multiple homicides when you started getting around 29 years of age. So let's think of that for a minute. The average age of an individual graduating from city schools or public school is about 18. But when you start looking at with those individuals who have gone woefully bad, and I'm using the most extreme data, homicide, right? Those individuals are just 7 years, 8 years out of school. If not being 16 and still being school aged, 17 being school age, 18 and still being school age. But individuals 29 and 30 is where it bunches up. And so that means those individuals are not out of school very long. And you can believe that the manifestation of their behavior happens very early on. So I'm gonna stop there and say this, because I want to be right at 15 minutes. So I think what has to happen is this whole idea, people say it and it becomes a cliche, but we don't do any work in this office without being very clear, having our individuals articulate in their personal growth plan process. What's your purpose, man? What's your purpose, little sis? What is your purpose? What is it that you want to do? Because those of us are on this phone, we are passionate about what we do, and what we do lay us down at night and it wakes us up in the morning. So you got to be clear. You got to have some clarity about purpose. And when you look at purpose, you got to make it reality based, so we know individuals along with that purpose, because everybody wants to be somebody, even if it means becoming the worst version of themselves. Right? And so we find individuals, unfortunately, that don't know how to take their car theft skills to a place where they can do something that is tantamount to the knowledge that you have to steal cars. There is a legitimate job that will allow you to use that same knowledge. But if we're upstream and we're guiding correctly, we can expose them wider to something that's relevant and productive and legal. So we have the why, finding your why. And then this whole idea of relationships. We do a lot with relationships in terms of what relationships are you going to choose, because we know they're going to be in pursuit of love relationships. But their love relationships are not only of the individual whom they love, but their love relationships are with the individuals who they love in terms of, I'm talking about sexuality in that case, but their love relationships of this being humanity. Right? And so we got to talk about relationships at a deep level. And then the last thing that we talk about when we talk about why is this notion of courage in the midst of difficulty. Many of us call that faith, right? We got to be able to help them in that regard. And so that's the work of credible mentors. And again, the rest work cycle. So we're talking about the work right now. And all of this is fatiguing as you begin to do this work. And then we're talking about the facilitation of the youth. Everybody has to have a self-improvement plan. Because one of the things that we have, all of us on this call have, like, that we are like 100% of the population of the people in the world. All of us on this call, we have the same thing that the people across the world had. Everybody in this world, one thing that we have in common is that we are imperfect. And so we talk about our imperfections, and we know that we all have to have a self-improvement plan. So everybody's included. So we're not segregated by class in that regard. We're not segregated by race in that regard. We're not segregated in any way at all, because we're talking about what brings us together similarly. Because in fact, those credible mentors who do a great job, they center with the individual. Those of us who do great work, we center with individuals. Individuals believe in us because they feel like, oh, you too? You have that in common too? And so those of us who have that ability to center, we are able to get that work done. So self-improvement plans is a part of the work. We have to have those individuals as credible mentors. As I move to close, is that we have what we call narrative truth coaches. And the reason that we have to have narrative truth coaches, because we know that individuals will become the best version of themselves, even if it's being good at doing the wrong stuff. And if they're good at doing the wrong stuff, it's because of the stories that they tell themselves. So I grew up in Baltimore City. I grew up in the hood. I was blessed. I grew up in a place called Reservoir Hill, but we called it White Lock Street. We threw up W's, right? Because I was part of that place. And my brother and I would always say later on, he said, man, this is wild, right? You got a chance. You graduated from Penn State, and I didn't listen to mom, because we only had our mom for 13 years, because she passed when I was 13, he was 15. You graduated from Penn State, little man, and I graduated from the state pen. He's doing well now, but he had to become, he was in need of a credible mentor upstream. Didn't get it, became incarcerated, right? So narrative truth coaches are individuals who can tell that story, or who can effectively debunk the story. You have two individuals on the call that I work personally with, and Anthony Muhammad and Brandon Wilson. They are narrative truth coaches through and through. They know how to debunk stories. They know how to get right down there. The old folks said, put it down there where the ghost can get it, right? And so those individuals. And then the last thing I will say, Suki, in this regard, to be on time, is this notion of choice. We cannot coddle our children. That's why we got to get in their space very early on, because we got to talk about choices. We got to talk about making a choice, choose. But we got to give them the reality base of the choices. Many individuals, you know, my mother used to tell us, I said, you know, because when we were here, and we're unfortunately in this place in society right now, and they say, Mom, we were hungry. You know, we grew up with a single mom. Mom, we were hungry. Mom, I'm hungry. She said, there's food in there. And then it was the thing that we ate yesterday. And so I said, Mom, I don't want, she said, I don't want any peanut butter and jelly tonight. She said, well, you don't have to have peanut butter and jelly. You can have jelly and peanut butter. Forced choice. But she gave us the choice. And guess what everybody did? We ate that night. And so, but look at on the other side. We have to begin, and she gave us the information that helped us to choose, right? Many of our youngsters, other people's children, and that's what I used to, other people's children, because I used to lead as a principal, sharing with those with whom I work, saying that our children might not attend this school, this public school, but we're going to work diligently to ensure that this is a place that, if in fact we had to have a place for our child to go to school, that this would be the place. And if you can't do that, you can't work here. Your child doesn't have to come here, but this has to be a place that you would envision that your child would be, and that will give us the energy to do our work. That energy again puts us out there where we have to work and we have to rest and work. And so with that said, Suki, I'll yield back to you.
Amazing. Aaron, I'll punt it over to you to kick off the panel. But Dr. Bunley, thank you so much for inspiring all of us. And I don't know, I can't say enough. And I know people are watching and really thinking about credible messengers and the work that y'all do and how important it is to the ecosystem of juvenile justice in the state, because we're really trying to redefine what that means. People think a certain thing when they think juvenile justice or just justice in general. So thank you for helping us rewrite that narrative too. Aaron?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bunley. Yeah, I think you did a great job of setting the stage here and giving us some of the why, and maybe we can dig into some of the how now too. I'm joined by 4 great panelists here. I have Isan Cornish, who's a violence intervention specialist with Break the Cycle of Violence and Trauma Survivors Network at Johns Hopkins. We've got Antoine Terrain, who's a life skills instructor at Roca Impact Institute. We have Anthony Muhammad, who's a youth mentor with Baltimore Brothers, and we have Brandon Wilson, who's a life coach leader at We Are Us. So thank you, gentlemen, all for joining us today. I want to get started by talking about your journey. What can you guys share what led you to become a credible messenger, and how does your lived experience shape the way that you support youth? And please just jump in.
Well, I was started off, it was an individual for me, a gentleman named Leonard Spain that I've met at a previous job, who at the time he was doing his intern and pursuing his master's degree. And I ended up leaving that job context and coming into Hopkins at 2015. I ended up transitioning from environmental care. I transitioned into surgery as a perioperative equipment specialist. In the process of that, Leonard was brought into Hopkins in 2019 to initiate the HVIP here at the hospital. And in the process of all of that, he and I would run into each other, and he would tell me about the program that they had here at Hopkins. He would urge me and always like pull on my coattails, saying that I should get into this line of work, that he thought that I would be good for this type of work. I would consider his words, deeply, but I just at the time wasn't feeling compelled until someone very close to me was killed, and somebody very dear and close, and I just felt that it was timely that I shifted into this field of work. In light of my lived experience and how I utilize it to shape my support for the youth, just to give a little bit about my background, things that I'm not proud of, but I certainly utilize the past, as an instrument of positivity towards the youth. So for that reason, I'm not ashamed of my past. It has helped me become the man I am today, and I utilize it for good. At the age of 9 years old, my brother and I, single parent home, we moved into public housing, also known as the projects in East Baltimore, Douglas Homes. And I was very much into football. I was very good at it, and I had opportunity to transition into high school, to go to schools such as Gilman Boys Latin, Calvert Hall. And in the attempt to make that transition, the support just kind of like fell on the wayside. And there was a void internally within myself. As a result of that, between the age of 12 and 13, I began to be acclimated into street culture, what people refer to as the streets. As a result of that, by the age of 15, I was sent away for the first time to my first juvenile commitment at foster camp in Cumberland, Flintstone, Maryland. subsequently to that, before the age of 17, I've done 3 juvenile commitments altogether, taking away 3 years of my life if you do all those commitments, far as bringing them together with the time, that I spent away from home. By the age of 19, I'm just trying to get to the main points, skipping over a lot of detail, but just to draw a synopsis. By the age of 19, I was sent away for a very lengthy amount of time, from the age of 19, and I was released at the age of 33. During that length of time that I spent incarcerated, I began to do some introspection. I began to do some self-evaluation, and I realized that I almost threw away my entire life for mediocrity. What was offered to me in the streets, which was equivalent to mediocrity. And I began to look within myself. I began to look at things outside myself, and I began to question things, asking, why in certain communities that I was raised up in, why is drugs, violence, it's like it was designated into certain environments. So I began to question these things, and I began to be concerned, and I began, a self-love was ignited within me, where I really began to care about myself, and not just myself, but others, who was from these same communities that was basically captured in what people refer to as street culture. So I began to really do work on myself and change, and try to encourage people, even while I was incarcerated, to enter onto a different trajectory, enlightening them and just share with them that the streets don't have nothing to offer us but death and jail. And when I was released, I began to apply the things that I learned, the things that I was preparing for once I was released. And I began to work for the first time in my life, had a full-time job, was taking care of family. I ended up, as I was sharing, at Hawkins in 2015. But in light of that, with the lived experience, what I want to share to conclude my thought with the question, we have urban culture and we have street culture. Street culture, unfortunately, is a component of urban culture. It is captured and surrounded by urban culture, but it is a component of urban culture. And unfortunately, a lot of our youth that we meet and that we engage, they are already influenced and very much embedded in street culture. And when we talk about street culture, we're talking about primarily guns, drugs, violence. So based on these things, we're able to take the negative, the lived experience, and what that does, it allows us to relate, it allows us to connect, and it allows us to establish trust with them through the relatability. And that opens up the door to usher in a new trajectory, a new life, a new path, which we are able to convey with them because we are connected with them through our lived experience. And then that gives us the right of passage to lead and guide them into a new trajectory, ourselves also being an example of that new trajectory, because we ourselves have laid a groundwork and a track record of not just the negative, but also the positivity. So they not only hear things verbally, things are being articulated. They're seeing, they're hearing explanation, and they're seeing demonstration.
That's right.
So that gives us the right surpasses as credible messages, our lived experience, to utilize the negative to bring them into a new trajectory.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Cornish. Would anyone else like to share what brought you to this work and how your lived experience shaped the way you support youth you work with?
I can go. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm gonna try to condense it in, but for me, I guess the moment when I realized that it just wasn't me. I come from the neighborhoods that we go into today. Made some mistakes. I lived a life that I saw everybody else living, right? So I might have been a leader of the lost and forgotten, but I was a follower in the sense that I wasn't raised to be that, right? So I don't know. One day I just kind of got that. I don't know how. I had some people talking to me. I'm gonna say I don't know how, but one day I just realized it wasn't me, you know. And when I realized that, I started to make some new choices and decisions, right? And within making those bad decisions, you always have those thoughts of good decisions to make, but you're scared to say the things that you think around the people that you're around. You don't want to, be judged or cast out or looked at in a certain light. So long story short, yeah, once I realized it wasn't me, I knew I wanted to make a change. As far as getting into the work, I started out volunteering with Safe Streets, helping out with mediation and stuff like that in the neighborhood, some community events. That led me into the hospitals, as Cornish was talking about. That was 2019, I think. HVI hospital responded at Union Memorial, in Good Sam. Learned a lot there. I was also working in a school over North Carrollton at the time. So I was doing both of those things at the time. And that led me to Roca. Came to Roca as a youth worker. Came to Roca, learned a lot about CBT. And what I want to get to about this is, yes, of course, my lived experiences have made me a credible messenger. But when I got to Roca, I realized that we can create credible messengers. Anybody can be a credible messenger, because these people are in survival mode. They're all in survival mode out there. When I got to Roca and I learned a lot about CBT, and I kind of all right, so you know what, I'm sticking it on that. I'm going to take an hour every day. I'm focused on CBT. I'm learning. And I realized, okay, this is the way in for anybody else. And the reason why we're not attacking this, can be attacking this is because we're saying, oh, only this group can be credible messengers. No, we need everybody to be a credible messenger. You got to find your end. If somebody don't have no food in their refrigerator, that's your end. That's how you become a credible messenger. You can put some food in there today, you are now a credible messenger. Somebody's going to listen for that little bit of second. You took away that small bit of survival they have to be in that day. So that's what I do. I talked to Shuki about this a little bit about. I was telling some people before, they thought that because I was relatable, I had a better chance than them as far as reaching these people. And I was like, no, this stuff can also be triggering for me. It's also stuff I used to like doing. This could also be a trauma-filled situation for me because I used to like doing this. And some of these neighborhoods I go into, my neighborhood don't technically like these people. So I'm putting myself in lots of danger doing this stuff that I'm doing sometimes. I could be close to so many of these situations that go on in the city. But somebody that could come into the situation with, no skin in the game and only empathy, you can actually probably get further than me, with some of these situations. I really truly believe that because I've seen it done. Now, you might need a soft handoff sometimes in a situation. I might got to walk you down there and say, hey, this is such and such. She's here to do such and such. But at the end of the day, we gotta get around and saying we all can be credible messengers. We really care about this work. We gotta get around and say we all can do it. So that's where I'm at now. I do a lot of teaching here now. I was telling Shuki, most of the time now I'm teaching staff a lot, and that's even worse than teaching the kids. But that's the work. Credible messages got to create credible messages. And that's where I'm at now. So that's what keeps me going, keeps me driven.
Thank you, Antoine. I really appreciate what you said about finding your in, and you set me up for a next question here is, what makes credible messengers different from other adults in the system when it comes to building that trust with young people? How do folks find their in? I'm curious what others have to say about
that. I think as how y'all doing? I think as I was thinking about what makes me credible, um, you know, and I actually looked up the word credible, you know what I mean, because I know what it meant, but I just wanted to just look at the definition of it, and it says able to be believed or convincing. And you know, so my life experiences, I grew up in West Baltimore. Um, like everybody, we grew up in the inner city. We all seen the same thing, we all experienced the same thing, and we all suffered as a result of those same decisions that these individuals are now making. So it's like, your life experiences, shape you to become believable. Like, it's not a coincidence that no matter if I go into DJS, no matter if I go into a school, no matter if I go into a neighborhood, if I begin talking, I can relate to the individuals who are sitting there listening because of my life experiences. So I just think that, the way that my life was shaped and now I'm able to regurgitate it back out to the universe, makes me credible. And so now when I just go into these different spaces, it separates, me from the next individual because of what I've been through. And now I didn't not only go through it, but now I'm standing in it saying, this is what I've been through. And if you want to make a change, then if you don't want to go through what I went through, then you need to make a change. But I think just being able to show them that I was once where they was at, um, it gives me a little more leeway with the youth.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Good morning, everybody. My name is Anthony Muhammad, youth mentor with the Baltimore Brothers organization. And to answer the question of what kind of makes me credible, what? The charger? Excuse me. That's as credible as they get. We live right now. So, yeah. I at the age of 15, I'll share this very briefly. At the age of 15, I was arrested for 2 homicide charges here in the city of Baltimore. I was ultimately convicted and sentenced to life plus 20 years in prison. I served a total of 29 years, 7 months, and 29 days before I was released in 2022 under the Maryland Juvenile Restoration Act. Since then, I've been working primarily as a youth mentor with the Baltimore Brothers organization at 2 locations. The Booker T. Washington Middle School, I'm the lead mentor there. And here at Furman Templeton Elementary, where we're at right now, we kind of support and assist the climate control in our Baltimore Brothers capacity. I'll say that the judge who sentenced me mistakenly believed that I was unredeemable, unreformable, and that the actions that I committed were unreconcilable. But thankfully, the judge who released me in 2022 believed the total opposite about me than the judge who sentenced me. In fact, the judge who released me, the Honorable Judge Yvette Bryant of the Circuit Court in Baltimore City, said that in all of her years on the bench, I was the first violent offender that she had absolutely no reservations about releasing back into the community. And what was at the root of her decision was the work that I did while I was still yet in prison and mentoring other youth who entered the Maryland prison system with life sentences. That record of mentorship to other lifers impressed her, and my commitment to her that is what I wanted to do upon my release. Help other 15-year-olds not make the same bad decisions that I made when I was young. So she believed me. She believed that I was credible enough to give me the opportunity to do that. And I'm honored to say that that is exactly what I'm still doing to this day. And this is kind of a full circle moment for me because the last 10 years of my incarceration, I had the great honor and privilege of working with one of the former directors of GoCap, Christopher Shank. We brought him into the prison system on several occasions through our victim offender mediation, victim rights week program. And so to be sitting here now with members of GoCap talking about the same work. And of course, Dr. Bunley is one of our great mentors in the work that we do here. But it is the lived experience that makes us credible. And not just the lived experience itself, but the lessons learned from the lived experience. we have a whole lot of people with that lived experience that really haven't learned the lessons of that experience yet. So it wouldn't make them credible. What makes us credible is the fact that we have learned the lessons of the errors of our mistakes and our ways, and have kind of accepted the role, the training really, of how to share that with the next generation to help them avoid some of the same mistakes and errors that we made in our youth. So I'm honored to be here with you all, and I'm here. Thank you.
And I just want to add, when I think about credible messages, I think about the word hybrid. Too often in this line of work, you can have someone on the professional side of things, but due to their lack of experience, lived experience, it can generate barriers to really connecting with the youth. On the flip side of that, you can kind of have someone with lived experience, and due to that, they can connect and relate, but they may have not entered onto a new trajectory. So therefore, they themselves have not shown a new way of living. So it becomes a barrier for them as well to lead someone into another direction. So that's why I say a credible message to me. When I think about a hybrid, it's like you get 2 in 1. It's like you get 2 in 1. And I want to leave that on that note.
Matter of fact, with Brother Cornish just said, we've seen individuals who have not made that transition, and they break the heart of young people who look to them because they see in them a glow, but that individual has not made the full transition to be positive and constructive through and through. In the streets, we say they play the 50, right? They're not all the way in on being true through and through. And consequently, the youngsters that are out there trying to find their way, when they find out that those individuals have their lives in 2 spaces, the right space and the wrong space, only thing we do is break their heart, and they become angry. And they saying, well, can I really get out of what I'm in? Because I believe in this individual, they articulating that they're getting out, but they're not living that through and through. And so it messes with their mind. So, I mean, that's very, very important as well.
Yeah. So, Suki, is Aaron on, or I saw him drop off, and I thought I saw him join. If not, I'm happy to.
Yeah, I think you are right. He might have lost internet or something.
Yeah. So I just want to, Liz Park here. So I just want to thank you all for sharing your stories and your insight. I wanted to open it up to questions for folks, but first, what I've been sitting here thinking about that is something, Mr. Bunley, you said in the beginning, and then what I've heard through each of your stories is that they're all redeemable. And that has been my life's work, is that I work with kids and they're going to continue to make mistakes. I have a young man I've been working with for a couple of years. He printed out a 3D gun, got himself in some more trouble, but he knows that I'm still there with him, and his mom is there with him. That as you guys are working with these people, you're not expecting them to change overnight. We're all imperfect. It's a hard choice to make. So I just commend you all for the work that you're doing, and that you believe in these young people. And I hope, to see you down in Annapolis talking to legislators, that these young people have lives that we will benefit from if we can help them. So I just want to see if anybody else on the work group has a question or would like to comment. Tanya?
Just want to thank you all for being here today, for sharing, for helping so many youth. I'm just so grateful for everything that you all are doing. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, so I'm at the Maryland Department of Health, and this group is really trying to think statewide about what do we do, right? So can you talk a little bit about, how widespread, the work you're doing is amazing. How widespread is it across the state? What else should we be doing in this space? Kind of any, just more, concrete recommendations of like, what can we be doing at the state level to help our kiddos?
Yes, I definitely would like to jump in on that in terms of the need. What's needed? And here in practically all of, Baltimore City Public Schools in some capacity. The program itself is in 5 schools, but we have representatives who fluctuate in and out of schools at different capacities. And actually, what's needed? From a boots on the ground perspective level, what's needed is an expansion of real, tangible, credible messengers. Like in the work we do with We Are Us and Dr. Bunley, we've been very successful in reducing, or contributing to the reduction of homicides and non-fatal shootings in Baltimore City. Historic numbers and reductions, but while that challenge has diminished, what we find increasing is the challenge or the attention to our youth specifically our school age youth. And the schools are underserved, right? In terms of credible messengers. That's what's needed. We need an infiltration, an influx of credible messengers in all of these troubled Baltimore City public schools, throughout, specifically in Baltimore City, but really all throughout the state. We have to have programs in place, people on the ground in the schools daily, right? That can influence and affect and change behavior and mindsets right there live on the ground. So that's kind of like the next frontier, because it's that population, our youth, that are being so underserved, and the direction of attention to them has to be in the school where they spend most of the time throughout the day. If we can put credible messengers, truth narrative coaches, as Dr. Bunley shared, in the school with them daily, then I think we can solve these issues involved in this population overnight.
Brandy?
Thank you. Brandy, I think you're on.
Brandy.
Sorry. What's the criteria for a credible messenger? And I see it's guys here. I'm sure it's more than you all that are credible messengers within Baltimore City. Are there female credible messengers? And also, are the credible messengers paid, or is it strictly volunteer?
The one of the things that we're doing, and I'm suggesting through demonstration to the mayor of this whole idea, and I think the mayor's mind is evolving to what Mr. Anthony Muhammad just stated, that, and I think both of the other credible messages on this call made the same thing. And this upstream work is very, very important. The reason that we've been able to contribute to the reduction in violence in Baltimore is because you have individuals who are connected. Everybody's connected to everybody else. If we understand the science of 6 degrees of separation, and you look at 82.2 square miles of land in Baltimore, when we go to a funeral or we go to a wedding, you will see a person there that you didn't know was connected to the person that was connected to the person that was connected to the person. We all are connected, right? And so because we have to be more scientific, upstream is the first piece of science, and then the understanding of the degrees of separation that we have between each other. And when we do that, we're going to impact, as Mr. Muhammad said, overnight. We're just gonna reduce it. And then if you get them upstream, if you can see the individuals graduating, because everybody writes about the school to prison pipeline. We know that the streets become the schools, right? And then the schools, the prisons become the streets. All of those things are woven together, so we got to go upstream. That's just the next piece. All across the state, we have to get upstream and we have to take the model and replicate it. In the model of, I'm talking about of curriculum, the curriculum training of credible mentors, what that is. You had a brother talking about cognitive behavior structuring, CBT, all right, that theory. But it is about the mindset change. And we got to go upstream now to help other people's children, because basically they're individuals who have lost their way with their children for whatever the reason is. And we're not there to impugn them. We're just saying that we see that they need some help with the individuals that they love very much, right? But can't help them for whatever various reasons. So I'm going to jump because I have another meeting. But thank you all again for inviting me. And but you have the experts on, all of you. All of you are the experts. So we can get this done. So let's persevere and let's replicate what we know that is workable.
Thank you, Dr. Bunley. Antoine, I see your hands raised. Did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I wanted to chime in on Brandy's question. So, I mean, I know all kinds of credible messages at this point. Women, men, paid ones, unpaid ones. I mean, there's no certain criteria for it, I don't think. Some people get paid for doing it, some people do it for free. Some people find infrastructures like Roka and built their way in that. Some people that's just on the ground every day, that work regular jobs and get back into the community and do that kind of work. But this goes back to what we said earlier about the end, about finding the end. And Dr. I wish he was still on the phone with what he said earlier about, this work can be exhausting. If we only look at this work and say, well, hey, it's only something that Antoine can do, he's credible, or Cornish, he's credible, and Anthony, he's the only one that's credible. What the hell's going to happen to us at some point dealing with trauma, if we don't have the help from others who maybe don't have that background? Like, we all have to be credible messengers if we really want to attack it. We just want to say we're attacking it. I know what we want to do. We want to attack it or we don't. I was in Charlottesville recently at a panel, and there was a gun violence convention, but there was no gun manufacturers there. And I asked a simple question. I said, well, how are we attacking this problem if these people are here too? It doesn't make sense. The kids call me a weekend for $5 and $10, but they got a $1,500 gun. How did this happen? We're not asking the right questions. So we need everybody. It's everybody's problem. Everybody has to be credible. Everybody has to be credible. Of course, Cornish or Anthony's situation might have them in a relatable place with understanding. But also, somebody that doesn't come from this, if you have the right empathy and you really want change, you find your end and you get with it. Liz, you said something earlier. You're still there with this guy that's going through his situation. That's always an end. Somebody going to court that needs help to get there, that's always an end. Brandy, if you know that he said, Bunley was saying, the kid's mother or you don't know the mother, you might can meet the mom, and she does have a little influence over the nephew, that's shit into the nephew. The aunt, the neighbor, whoever. You get into the community, you figure it out. You find your end. You might don't find it the first time. And one thing I want to say about the exhaustion part, the only way to not exhaust yourself is to not have expectation. And we got to find better ways to teach them how to think for themselves instead of telling them what to do. Because you tell them what to do, if it doesn't work out, they're mad at you. You got to teach them how to be their own therapist, teach them how to challenge themselves. And that's kind of what I do. I ask the right question. I want to tell them something, I ask them a question for them. And like this sign above me, breathe and take 8 to 12 second pause, right? In 8 to 12 seconds, the brain can come up with 120 different thoughts, different outcomes. Just 8 to 12 seconds. So we got to teach them how to be responsive. To take 1 second of thought. 8 to 12 seconds, you can come up with 10 different things to do. 120. That's all I wanted to leave y'all with, because I do got something else I got to get to. But I did want to say that I appreciate it being here today. Thank you, Shuki. Thank you, everybody, for speaking.
Thank you so much, Twan.
Yeah.
And I just want to pivot real quick off something Twan said about becoming a credible message. My colleague, he typically quotes this statement, and he said that the new form of leadership is partnership. And that's really the notion when it comes to this monumental work that we have chosen to put our hands to, that we need everybody to play their part. You know, you don't have to have an in-depth lived experience if you have a heart that loves, that cares, that's willing to hear. You know, people are attracted to love. And love is very attractive in this day and time because you seldom see it. The people, the population that we engage, they don't know how love looks. So they are often captivated by fake love. So people can discern genuine love. So when you really care, to Twan's point, and you have a heart for people and to see people's lives change for the better, that makes you a credible messenger. It does.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cornish. I know we only have a couple minutes left, and I think I'm speaking for many of us here when I say I think we could have gone another hour or two listening to you all speak, and we didn't get to all of our questions. I want to open it up to others on the call if they have questions for our panelists, and thank you all once again.
Suki, I'm wondering if we can bring them to a full commission meeting. I just think this has been really great, and just has helped us think a lot. And you know, Brandy and I are already thinking about how can we support these types of programs, right? So thank you. But yeah, I think Suki, it could be great for others to hear from this group as well.
Could not agree more. Thank you, Tanya. Yep, and thank you to all of our credible messengers here today. Incredible.
Yes, thank you.
Brandon, looks like you have a final thought.
Yeah, I just want to say that you know, like I think Brother Anthony said it. Well, it's not a coincidence that I was incarcerated with Brother Anthony and Brother Ishan. You know, at lengths of time, you know, with them. Like, you know, I think me and Ishan, we came in together actually, you know, in the prison system, you know, when we was 20 years old, young. You know, and so now to be sitting here on a Zoom call and me and him see each other out, you know, and just talk about, you know, our transformation and how we, you know, had been through it, then we now are the change agents, right? But I guess remember when um I was in prison and men were coming to the prison and speak to us, you know, positive individuals. And I just always remember how I always look forward to seeing an example, you know, coming to the prison, like, you know, a strong example. And like we talked about, it was believable. And so I know the impact that had on my life, you know, and whereas though I feel as though I didn't have the opportunity to really get it before I went to prison. Like I feel like I got tricked. So now um I go into the prison system every week now, the DJS, the juvenile facilities, every week. And now I'm being an example of what I know I needed at that age. And so, you know, I truly believe that we should not be hindered to go into these spaces where they are at all over the state of Maryland. Once you enter the sphere of a credible messenger through different organizations, we should be allowed to enter these institutions. We should be allowed to enter these schools. You know, once we prove that, you know, we are who we say we are, because otherwise, you know, if they don't have access to us, then how can we really say that we trying to make a change in our community, in our city, in our state, if the youth that needs men and women don't even have access to the men and women that they need. So I think that's just very important, being able to make sure that they have that access. And so I think if we can lead with that, like this, especially into the prison systems where they are at, all because they have facilities all over the state of Maryland. And I just think that we should be allowed to enter them and do what we do, so to give them a chance to come home new men and women. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you again, Mr. Wilson. Thank you to all of our panelists and to Dr. Bunley. Suki, I think this was a great meeting today, and I look forward to hearing from these gentlemen and maybe others soon at the commission. I'll turn it back over to you, Suki.
that's all we have today. This work group does not meet again until January. So there will be interactions between myself and the co-chairs until then. But if you have anything you need from me or the co-chairs, reach out. And thank you again to the speakers. It was really, truly a great day. So thank you for a great kickoff to the Friday into the weekend. Lots to chew on.
Thank you so much.
To this platform. I appreciate it. Brandon, I'll be in touch, bro. Always a pleasure.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.